Hello everybody, I've been getting a lot of requests to do middle school graphic novel recommendations, and I am going all in. For the next 10 weeks, I will be doing 5 middle grade graphic novels a week, reviewed for your classroom. Thanks for watching. I'm the comics teacher. That's correct. Over the next 10 weeks, every Wednesday, I'm going to be bringing you 5 new graphic novels and or series that you can bring into your middle school classroom. Some class sets, some just on your classroom library. But without further ado, let's get into the amazing titles for today. All right, I'm gonna be popping the titles in right here as I talk about them, which is why I've cleared off my shelf back here. The first title I am going to talk about is Raina Telgemeier's Smile. Bang! Smile is one of those national best-selling, award-winning graphic novels that I would say is probably a must-have on any middle grade graphic novels. Raina Telgemeier has just changed the game when it comes to graphic novels, especially middle school graphic novels. One of the most successful comics artists, graphic novel artists of all time, because one of the things Raina does so amazingly is she creates empathy and realism in teen characters and preteen characters that even extend into adults and how we feel about things and how we get insecure. Smile is about her growing up with teeth and issues with her mouth that needed to be fixed, and the insecurities that came along with all of the headgear and braces and all of the items and going to the dentist that comes along with it as you are growing up, when things are already awkward as heck enough. Smile, if you have not read it. And I know somebody had suggested I do the Raina Telgemeier books as like a whole, like just say all of Raina Telgemeier books, but I want to talk about each of them individually. And Smile and Sisters and Guts, they all have a special place on this list. So I'm going to talk about Smile today and tell you that this is one you must have on your comics middle school classroom shelf. The next title we're going to talk about is All Summer Long by Hope Larson. All Summer Long follows the summer of this girl named Binna. Now, Binna is dealing with the tragedy of not having her normal summer buddy with her the entire summer because he is away for a month at summer camp. So she needs to figure out what she is going to do in the wake of her best friend and summer buddy being gone for an entire month. The book basically follows her and her adventures in boredom and figuring out who she is and making new friends and all of the things that we sometimes find awkward and all too real about growing up in a world where you don't have a driver's license and maybe it's hard for you to get out and do things without money and all of those things. So it is a very well done coming of age book. I almost at times in this book like forget there's no, I mean, with the exception of her dealing with the idea that her friend is away and she's trying to figure out what to do this summer, there's not a lot of plot happening here, which I kind of liked and didn't like at the same time. But it's interesting just to get the world and summer according to this one character over the course of this entire book. It is definitely middle grade appropriate and will relate to a lot of students who are in that age range. So All Summer Long by Hope Larson should make its way onto your classroom shelf. The next book series I've talked about quite a lot on this vlog, and if you've been watching, you know that I'm a fan of Jason Wahl's Last Pick. Last Pick is a really great graphic novel to have on your classroom shelf. There are 3 books in the series. You can have your library get them, you can put them on your shelf. They're all very classroom appropriate, and they deal with middle grade aged students solving the problem of saving the earth. So you have both, all sorts of people, all different types of people of ages and just everything coming together to save the earth. And that's why I put Last Pick on the list here. I think it is very applicable. There's a lot, as you know, if I've said before, if you listen, people can find themselves in the characters in this story. It is action packed and twists and turns. I think it's amazingly written and drawn. Last Pick is one that should also make it onto your shelf. The next title is one that I'm going to want to talk about for a little bit here, and it's going to bring me into a discussion that I was skeptical about having with you, and I talked to a couple colleagues today, because I didn't know how to really address the issue. Of course, I've been in education over 15 years, and my classroom graphic novel library shelf is extremely diverse. It's always been very diverse. I try to bring in books from every walk of life, and representation matters. And I try to do that as much as I possibly can. This book I'm going to chat about today, all right, by Jen Wang, is called The Prince and the Dressmaker. I don't know why I just held that up. I am such a habit because I'm putting the books up here. You know what? I'm going to put it up here now. The Prince and the Dressmaker, and I'm going to leave it up here. But you can see I actually have it. And I'll put it on this side now. We have dual Prince and the Dressmaker books. All right. I love it. This book, I read it this week. I love this book. It's beautiful. It's emotional. It's funny. It's clever. It's original. It is really everything you want out of a graphic novel. And I don't say that lightly. I don't know. I kind of want to pick it. I'm not ordering these. I'm not ordering these at all. I'm just giving you books to put on your middle grade classroom shelf for you to read, to get into the library. Here's the premise, though. Here's what I want to talk about with you about this book. Now, this book is about, I'm going to cut to the chase and say there's this prince who hires this dressmaker because he likes to wear dresses. And he's about 16 years old. And she's young too. She's a teenager as well, and she gets hired to be his personal tailor. But he loves to wear dresses. So she's amazing, and she makes him these beautiful dresses, and they go out on the town, and he's dressed to the nines in the dress and the wig and the heels, and they have a blast, and he loves going out in these really elaborate dresses. And his parents, the king and the queen, are trying to get him to be married, right? So they're bringing in all of these princesses and women for him and girls for him to meet and court and look for a wife. The problem is he's not interested in getting married. Now, there's not a lot of sexuality discussed in this book at all. It's not about that. This book is about him just feeling comfortable in who he is, and who he is this boy who loves to go out and wear dresses and wigs and feel empowered in that way. It is a very unique book. And I'm reading this book and I'm like, how is this going to end? And the whole time I'm like, I'm wondering how this book is going to end. I don't want to ruin the last act for you, because the last act of this book is absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I finished it and immediately gave it to my wife, and I was like, you got to read this. This book is just killing it. Now, where does the issue come in? The issue comes in, I would say, in this idea of, for so many societal reasons, you are going to possibly have this book in your classroom. And some boys are going to read this book and immediately say this is gay, right? Because for some reason, middle-aged boys and high school boys and just people who have not grown up a lot will still use that term as like, I don't want to read this. It's about some dude in a dress. I'm not reading this book. You will get some blowback. Now, luckily, things are getting better, and students are much more likely to read and enjoy and love and fall in love with characters that are different than they used to be. And I don't want to stereotype either and say just boys. And I mean, that's generally the stereotype that we've had, right? That boys will feel this way. I mean, of course, women can feel this way as well. Like people in general could look at this book and say, this is weird, because as a point in society, we haven't gotten there where people can just accept that a man or a boy wants to wear a dress and a wig and heels and makeup and go out and have fun on the town. As it's not as accepting as it's going to be, right now. It's not. If I wanted to go out this weekend and put on a ball gown and a wig and makeup and head to Chili's, which I wouldn't do in a pandemic, but if there was no pandemic and I walked in feeling super confident and in love with myself, regardless of my sexuality whatsoever, people would think that was strange, right? So while it is a big part of this book. I mean, it covers the prince and the dressmaker, right? It's about this young man who wants to wear these dresses, and the way that it's tied up and the way that it concludes is absolutely brilliant. We have to be aware that when we put books like this in front of students, you may get a reaction that you weren't ready for, and then if that book makes it home and you get a parent who might not be on board with the thoughts or ideas in this book, you are also at liberty of having the parent call and say, why are you putting this book in front of my child? This book is about, things that we don't agree with in this house. those are discussions then that you have to be prepared to have, right? And most of the time that will not happen. I have such a diverse, I say was because it's so sad that my books are like off the shelf and I'm not able to share them with as many students as I once was. But when I did have just literally hundreds of graphic novels on my classroom shelf and students checked out whatever they wanted to, I never had a problem like this. And this is for sure a book I would have multiple copies of on my shelf because it's a beautiful book and I loved it. With that being said, as educators in buildings that we don't know how conservative or liberal they are, and if that's and I heard that like private schools are a whole nother story. I've never taught in a private school, but I know teachers that have, and they said they wouldn't, they'd have a harder time bringing books with these themes and ideas in them into the classroom even more. So read everything so you know what's going on and hear what this is about, and be ready to have those conversations and say, look, this is a wonderful book about being who you are and having those conversations with students and parents. But you may have to have those. Just want to say that it's an unfortunate reality, but we do have to have difficult conversations sometimes. I had a student once who read all of the LGBTQ books I had in my classroom, and he saw one of an old teachers in the hallway as we were leaving class, and the teacher had asked, "Hey, how are you liking Mr. K's class?" And the kid at the top of his lungs was like, "I love it. He lets me read all the gay books," and like just ran down the hallway. And at that moment, that was like such a cool thing that this student was so excited that I had such a diverse classroom library and promoted the heck out of every type of book on that shelf at all times. Okay. So The Prince and the Dressmaker, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful, wonderful book that I think everybody should read, and does have a place on every classroom library, middle grade, high school. Heck, I'm going to let my high school kids borrow this if they want, because it's so good. But know that and be ready for those conversations. And it's hard, right? Because when I had this conversation with some colleagues today, they were like, well, why do you have to say that something is a book for boys or a book for girls? I'm like, I don't want to say that. And I haven't been saying that, if you noticed. In the titles I've been putting up, I haven't been saying that. And I didn't even say that about The Prince and the Dressmaker. But the harsh reality is we still have all of these gender stereotypes and toxic masculinity floating around our schools that it is going to sometimes appear with the things we are doing in our classroom, and that we need to be prepared to figure out a strategy on how to have those conversations. Okay. That's something that'll come up as we go, but I hope that was okay. I hope it was okay that I kind of talked about that. I hope I talked about it well. I'm still learning through. I haven't had my first like big blow up or interaction with the student or parent about those issues yet. I think I handle it very maturely and confidently in my classroom and with the books that I pick. So, if you have any thoughts or ideas, please drop them in the comments below. Let me know how you're feeling and how you've dealt with issues like that as well. But, beautiful, beautiful book. Love it. The last one I'm going to talk about today. I'm going a little bit long here because of that conversation, but I think it was important. So I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to get out of here. Okay. Before I get out of here, I do want to tell you about one of the most important graphic novels to come out ever, period. And it is a middle grade book. Actually, it can be taught anywhere, read with anybody, but it has a really good place in the middle school classroom, and that is Maus by Art Spiegelman. Maus is the first graphic novel, and possibly only at this point, to win the Pulitzer Prize. It is just a fantastic nonfiction tale of Art's recounting of his father's experiences in the Holocaust. It is done with cats as Germans as cats and the Jewish people as mice. This is probably one, if you're watching this video, you've probably read Maus. You've definitely at least heard of it. If you have not, you need to go buy it right now. Just go get Maus. It's in 2 volumes, Maus 1, Maus 2. You can get the complete Maus, which has both of them. When people teach this in schools and when it's generally taught in schools, volume 1 is generally just taught because it is kind of big with both volumes. But by all means, keep both volumes in your classroom. This one, I would say, is probably, out of all of these here today, the one that you would probably be most likely to get a class set of, right? There's lesson plans out there like crazy for this book. I've even written lesson plans for Maus. I mean, Maus is the book that is the graphic novel that is taught in schools. If a school has one class set of a graphic novel, it's probably Maus. All right, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. 5 amazing middle grade graphic novels that you can go pick up and put on your classroom shelf. Once again, as the comics teacher always says, read everything before you put anything in front of kids so you are prepared to defend what's in there and know exactly what you're putting in front of students. Like I said, I'm going to get out of here every Wednesday. I'm going to be putting out 5 more middle grade graphic novels until I do 10 weeks. I hope you enjoy. I'm going to create a playlist of all of these too. So there's going to be a playlist on my YouTube channel that just says middle grade graphic novel review videos. So if you miss a week or two, you can go there, but don't miss a week. Subscribe, like, hit that notification bell so you know when I'm putting out these videos. I'm a busy dude, teach lots of stuff. I'm going to get these out every Wednesday, but the time might vary a little bit. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your week.